Hi friends. So sometimes astrology can get very complex, and it's been my desire of late to simplify. So what I want to focus on in this video is your sun sign. In other words, if I said to you, hey, what's your sign? That's your sun sign. And what area of the heavens it's hanging out in. That's all I want to focus on. Because we get a sense of where we do our personality work and where we hang out most of the time when we look at where the sun is, what astrological house it's in. See this little blank astrology wheel? These are the houses, and it's divided up into 12 sections, and each of these sections represents an area of your life. Some of you have heard me talk about the astrological houses and I've used the metaphor that it's like a castle, and that each of those 12 sections is like a room in the castle. And I want to flesh that out for us today. Because if we know what room of the castle we're hanging out in, we in a way know how we can be incredibly effective in our lives. And we know where we can use our personality to its greatest advantage to do our soul's work. So, for example, here's a chart, okay? And as you can see in this chart, the sun is hanging out in the 9th house. And we always start over here. This is always the first house. And by the way, if you do not have an astrology chart, just go to something like astro.com, enter your exact time, place, and date of birth, and it'll spit out a chart like this, okay? For some reason, I'm having issues about getting it on the screen. Okay, so over here, woo, is the first house, and then it goes around. Second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house, 12th house. You know, draw a circle, and put it in your, put the houses, list the houses from the far left down and around. If it's like a castle, the first house is the entrance to that castle. It is the grand opening doors. It is a very obvious area. So whatever planets, if your sun is hanging out in the first house, it's a very obvious sun because it walks through the doors with whatever quality it possesses, and it says, I'm here, I come forth, look at me, I am available. It's a very daring, forward-moving, fiery area. It's that whole gorgeous entrance. Like if you walked into a grand castle or a grand home and you looked up and you looked around and you felt this incredible sense of spaciousness and the doors had creaked open to welcome you and you walked through, that would feel pretty significant. So to have the sun in the first house is to say, I'm here, I come forth, I have arrived, I am in the entry hall, and these are the qualities that I'm bringing forward. The first house is classically an Aries house. And Aries is all about leadership and pioneering and daring. So if your sun hangs out in the first house, dare, initiate, come forth with whatever qualities your sun possesses. Now that's in another conversation. Like, are you an Aries sun? Are you a Taurus sun? Are you a Gemini sun? Are you coming forth with the ability to communicate? Gemini? That's another discussion. But the first house says, here I am, I've walked through the doors, it's obvious, you can see me, and I'm going to be daring about it. The second house, sometimes I'm going to give you a couple of examples about the rooms in the house. The second house, I would give you the image of, you walk in the front door, and then all the way through on the other side, you see these gorgeous gardens. So the second house are the gardens of the castle, where everything is blooming in its own time, in its own season. And so in the second house, you can sit in these beautiful gardens and you can contemplate your life, you can feel your own inner light, you can feel your own self growing. A house of beauty and manifestation. So there's nothing like a garden to say, I've planted something and now I'm seeing it grow. The second house sun wants to feel beauty, wants to feel its own value as one of the beautiful flowers blooming. It wants to feel the steadiness one feels when one is sitting quietly and meditating and breathing and has a rhythm to their life, and a garden has a rhythm. So the garden of the castle would be the second house, or I would say to you, on another level, the kind of vault of the castle. In other words, where do we store all the gold? Because the second house is a financial house. So sometimes when people have a loaded second house or have their son in the second house, they're very interested in how am I going to make money? And I will do whatever it takes to establish myself, to make money rhythmically, to make lots of money. But I know a lot of people that have second house sons that that's not their story. Their story is, how do I grow in my own private garden at my own rate and feel my value? You can feel yourself in if your sun is shining in the second house, you can feel yourself in the garden, or you can feel yourself in that realm of like, I am making money. And you could use the money for great things. Thank goodness people make money and use it for good things, So don't feel ashamed if you like the idea of the vault, because there's something about wealth and worth and value. Third house. If your sun is shining in the third house is like, I would say it's like the parlor of a grand house or of the castle, where lots of things are going on. People are drinking tea, there's a writing desk in the corner, people are having conversations, people are having, cocktails. There's conversation, there's exchange, there's writing. In a parlor, you can have somebody alone in the corner writing an entire novel. Jane Austen could be in the corner of the parlor writing up a storm. So you have writers when the sun's in the third house. But you also have the communicators who want all the news of the day. And, maybe this is more like England, early 1900s, but, when they come in with the little card on the plate and say, this person is waiting to see you, And that's very third house. Visitors dropping by, lots of movement, lots of exchange, lots of ideas, lots of curiosity. There could be a classroom for the children in the castle that the third house sun could thrive in, because the third house has so much to do with early education and books and study and facts. So the parlor, the classroom for the tutor. Also, I could imagine something like the room where all the telephone wires are connected, or the room where all the bells are ringing for, I need tea in this room, and I need, a letter delivered in this room. That's very third house as well. Third house suns want to be in everything, everywhere. So if you're a third house sun, you're a communicator, you're a connector, you're a networker, you're a writer, you're a student. Fourth house is yummy. Fourth house is the hearth of the castle. It is the kitchen. It is the fireplace that has a grate beneath it that's huge and warm, and we can cook big pots of soup for everyone. It is the kitchen at the basement of the castle where the king comes in the middle of the night for a sandwich. It's definitely the center place of the castle in terms of nourishment and in terms of warmth and in terms of care. On one hand, I could say to you that a fourth house sun just loves to be in the castle, period, anywhere in the castle, because the fourth house sun loves to be in their home and loves to be nestled and comforted and protected, that's a big word, by their home, and loves to even work out of their home. But if I was going to be even more specific, I would say the fourth house of the castle is this place where we feed, where we are fed, where we meet to warm one another, and it is a place of nourishment. People always gather in kitchens, right? At parties, they always gather in kitchens. Why? It's warm, it's toasty, there's food, there are quiet conversations in the corners, there's support. So a fourth house sun wants comfort, wants protection, wants to be at home, wants to create homes or comfort or protection for others to create that same experience, wants to nourish. Fifth house sun is interesting. Again, I would give you two different rooms. I would give you the stage in the castle where all things are performed and where we gather to celebrate creativity, where there are concerts and plays and speeches. So if you have a fifth house sun, you're most likely, there's that energy of offering your creative gift. However, not everyone is a huge extrovert that's a fifth house sun, because we have many forms of artists and leaders, and some of them are quieter. So yes, the castle stage, but also I would put in there the nursery because the fifth house rules children. So the desire to be in and amongst children and loving and playing with children. So it could also be the back lawns of the castle where there's play, where there's spontaneity, where there's creativity. And of course, again, depending on the texture of your sun, it sort of determines the kind of artist or leader that you are. So if you're a Pisces sun in the fifth house, you're going to be not as extroverted and tap dancing. You offer your gift quietly. So it could also be, let's just put this out there, that it could be the gallery of the castle where artists have hung their paintings and the quality of those artists is apparent, but the artist themselves does not have to be there, right? So there's an artistry, there's a leadership to that area, and there's a play and a spontaneity. So a fifth house sun has the desire to express and offer its creativity in whatever way. Sixth house is such a house connected to health and well-being, physical, emotional, and mental health. And it's a house connected to the daily workings of the castle. So, I could imagine it as a kind of infirmary, where do you go when you're hurt and need to be taken care of? And let's fix you up and let's get all the practical things taken care of. I could also imagine it as, the woman or man who runs the kitchen and it's their desk, or runs the household or runs the castle, and it's their point of operation where what's being cleaned, what's being organized, what system is in place, where's the calendar for the day, for the week, for the month. So it's the sort of inner workings of the castle in terms of the day-to-day routine. I see so many people that work in health in one form or another, hospitals, healthcare, health insurance, naturopath, homeopathy. Like, it doesn't just have to be traditional medicine. I see so many people with that. But I also see the great organizers, the great cleaner-uppers, the great castle home organizers. Let's clean out the living room today. Again, it would have to be with the infirmary or the inner workings of the castle. And it would have to involve a calendar, and it would have to involve checks and balances, and it would have to involve a very clear systematizing. Sixth house always wants to perfect, discriminate, clean up, purify, make healthier. The seventh house, in an interesting way, I was thinking about this today. With the seventh house, we go above the horizon. We've been talking about all the houses below the horizon, which are sort of more in the downstairs area of the castle. But then we go above the horizon, and I would say for the more the upstairs areas. There's public and private in both, but let's just say the top half of the chart is generally the more public part, but then you think about, well, what's upstairs? There are also bedrooms upstairs. There are also, areas that are not so public. Seventh house is the area of relationships. It's the area of marriage and partnership. It's the area of intimate relationships. But it's not necessarily, I wouldn't put it in the bedroom of the castle. I would put it more like, I suppose, the great houses, the great castles would have a kind of, like in a suite, right? There's the outside of the bedroom where there are couches and there are beautiful chairs and it's comfortable. It's not as formal as downstairs. So there's something about how are we meeting each other? How are we treating each other? There's an intimacy, but it's not the intimacy of the eighth house, which is the Scorpio house. So the seventh house would have to do with a place where you felt like you could have one-on-one intimate talks and connections, conversations that are of marriage and partnership. Yeah, I would say it's more like the antechamber to the bedroom. I could probably come up with another one for Libra. Would have to, Libra, the seventh house has a lot to do with right relationships and has to do with what is fair and just and equitable, and has to do with how we treat each other. So there could also be something that I could speak to around a more public use of that energy, like where is the room? Is it off of the office where we talk about action around right relationship or lawsuit, impending lawsuit? So it might be also an area off the office, let's say. So seventh house, if your sun is there, you are, though, deeply, deeply interested in marriage and partnership, relationships, harmony, balance, beauty, creating beauty. Eighth house sun. Eighth house is, it would be the bedroom in the castle for sure, because it rules sex, it rules intimacy, it rules transformation, rules death and rebirth. I would give another room to it because it rules money and it rules sort of the therapeutic process. And it also rules our secrets. So I would give several rooms to Scorpio. I definitely give the bedroom because of the intimacy factor, but I would also give like the dungeon where, there's secrets down there. There might be lots of money hidden down there. There might be the things stashed away that we don't want to know about, hidden documents. There might be things going on there that we don't want to know about. There might be bodies buried down there. That's all Scorpio, okay? And then I would also give a chamber to like where the king or queen might have met with his or her counselor, astrologer, person that counseled them, because that eighth house is such a therapeutic house. It's a house of going deeply into one's psyche and healing what needs to be healed and emerging. So an eighth house sun is one where there are so many therapists. There are so many financial advisors. That's why I would also have to give a room to, a money room again, a secret vault room, a room where there was only financial papers, where there were only business partnerships negotiated, the secret poker room, the behind the scenes room. All these there's a secretiveness to the eighth house. So an eighth house sun, therapeutic, could deal with death and dying, could deal with hospice, could deal with financial advising, could deal with all matters around sexuality, sex therapists, all that. It's a potent and loaded and powerful house, and people are often really interested in going like as deep as they can and getting to the heart of the mystery. I would also say that that's a house where sometimes you have scientists because they want to get to the root of the root of the root of the root, and they won't give up till they get there. And that's a sort of scorpionic or eighth house quality. Ninth house sun are the philosophers, the spiritual students, the teachers, travelers. So the room in the castle that I would give is like a map room or a fabulous library, filled with all the old best books, and filled with windows full of light streaming down on hardwood tables where you can sit with a teacher and learn the great mysteries, where you can sit with a teacher and talk about spirituality, where you can imagine what your next journey is going to be, where you're going to go, why you're going to go, what your vision is for your life. I mean, it's the area where we inspire, uplift. It's the area of teachers. It's the area of you as the teacher or you having fabulous teachers. It's the area of higher education. Every fabulous university or college has a great library, which is the ninth house. So a ninth house sun, you're a teacher, you're a spiritual advisor, you have great fortune in having people like that in your life. You're a world traveler, you're a philosopher, you're a person that inspires and uplifts and coaches people. You love freedom. So the ninth house is about vastness and expanse and big picture and big mind. So it's definitely, it's in a big room in the castle, and you just are inspired every time you're there. 10th house is your dharmic offering. It's your career. It is also, I would say, at the top of the castle in a gigantic room with a huge desk and a globe in the back and a big, wood desk with many drawers. It's the command station. It is seriousness of purpose around the work you're doing in the world. It's you at the top of the mountain. It's you working with only the best. It's you wanting to be the best. It's you as a parental figure, a father figure. It's you being the best at what you do. And it's a tremendous focus on the energy of authority and the energy of running the ship and the one in charge and command. So if you have a 10th house sun, you better believe that career is of paramount importance, responsibility, the parenting energy, you putting yourself behind that big desk and saying, well, what am I in charge of here? And what do I want to orchestrate here? And, what is under my command? What am I leading? So it's a big, important top of the chart house that says this is my work in the world. And of course, the signs that rule that house or the energy of the sun in that house will give you a sense of the kind of leader, command, work that you want to do. Sometimes we have like healers, obviously they still, which have great sensitivity. That's not about like, leading the military. That's like, your career is deeply important, but it requires a certain sensitivity and requires the capacity to heal, the capacity to feel, the capacity to intuit. The 11th house, I would say, is like the main room, the gathering place, the realm of feasts, the main hall, because the 11th house is the community house. It's where we gather in camaraderie, in friendship, in peership. It's where we are more together. It's where we would gather in times of peace and times of war. It's where we would gather to celebrate and to mourn. It's the idea that we are all one and we need to come together as one, and we are more than our many parts as one. The 11th house I would definitely give to the realm of the assembly hall, because it can also be very political. That can be a very political, because it wants a better world. So, it'd be the hall where people would give speeches and say, we need to do this next, and we need to improve here, and this is what's wrong in the village. And, it would speak up for improvements, because the 11th house also is a house of service and wants to be of service and wants to distribute the information that needs to get out to the world. Would put in the 11th house anything that was sort of cutting edge or technologically advanced. So, at any period in history, what was the most technologically advanced? You could also think of the 11th house as something like, when the printing press was invented and suddenly we could distribute books and distribute newspapers and get the word out. There's this beautiful phrase for the 11th house that just says, water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. So it's like, it's the area that wants to be of service. The only danger of the 11th house is if you have an 11th house sun and you feel like the lone wolf, where you feel like you don't feel like you belong in the assembly hall, or you don't feel like you belong, that you found your group. Because the 11th house really wants to have a group and a community, but can likewise feel like it's removed and watching life happen. So if you're an 11th house sun, you got to find your people, and you've got to find a way to serve, and you've got to find a way to improve the world, to make your little patch of world a better place. It's the house of democracy, right? 12th house. Now, the 12th house would definitely be like the sanctuary or the chapel of the castle, because it's where we feel our connection to source, our connection to God. If it weren't the religious chapel, then it's the quietest room in the castle that is your own private sanctuary, which could be even outdoors in the forest, in nature. But a 12th house sun definitely needs a kind of invisibility, needs to have a certain veiled quality, likes to be behind the camera, likes to be behind the throne, likes to be in the world of imagination and daydreaming. 12th house sun needs tons of solitude and needs the sense that is connected to something greater than itself, and then needs to take that connection of feeling connected to something greater and actually help those that are in need. Because the 12th house also rules all things around addiction or escape or depression. So oftentimes the 12th house sun will have to initially struggle with that themselves and then they want to help, and then they want to return the gift that they received, and then they want to uplift those that need support, that need compassion. So 12th house is very compassionate, heart wide open, but also prefers to do it quietly, prefers to do it anonymously, prefers to do it in the sanctuary or behind the scenes. That's a journey through the 12 houses. It's a journey through the 12 areas of one's life. And it's worth contemplating where your sun is and where you can be most effective in that area, and how you can be most effective in that area, and how you want to like make that room even more delicious in your castle and fill it and nourish it. Because we have to work with what we're given, and we have to take the best of what we're given and activate it. So this is one simple journey around, and I'm going to do others with perhaps looking at the moon sign or looking at the rising sign. But this is one very simple way of saying, where am I playing? Where am I shining? Where is my sun shining? Why? Why is it shining in the realm of the teacher? Why is it shining in the realm of the home and the hearth and nourishment? What should I do with it there? This whole phrase my father always uses, if you know who you are, you'll know what to do. So if you know what sun, where your sun is hanging out, you're going to have a much better sense of how to like nourish that area so that it thrives. Okay, my friends, much love.